It was a deal no one expected. A warlock allegedly hired to take down the leadership of New Birth Missionary Baptist Church for $170,000 while its senior pastor, Jamal Bryant, watched. Tonight, we pull back the curtain on a shocking twist in gospel leadership, witchcraft claims, and power plays that will make you question everything you believed about the church. You won't believe what happened next. What if I told you that behind the Sunday morning sermons, the bright lights, and the powerful preaching, there's a battle most believers never see? A battle not fought with words, but with influence, money, and something much darker. This story isn't just about Jamal Bryant, the fiery, charismatic pastor who took the pulpit of New Birth Missionary Baptist Church with dreams of rebuilding its legacy. No, this goes much deeper. It's about what happens when the sacred and the strange collide. When ministry meets manipulation and faith walks into the shadows. Recently, shocking reports began circulating online claiming that an alleged warlock, yes, a man who practices witchcraft, was somehow paid $170,000 in connection with New Birth Church. The details were murky at first, but the whispers grew louder. Was it true? Who paid him? And most importantly, why? Social media lit up with speculation. TikTok pastors dissected it. YouTube commentators turned it into late-night debates, and church insiders hinted that this wasn't as far-fetched as people wanted to believe. Some claimed it was an act of spiritual sabotage. Others said it was just another example of church politics gone too far. But everyone agreed on one thing. Something strange was happening behind the scenes at New Birth. To understand how we got here, you have to understand Jamal Bryant, the man himself. A preacher known for blending street smarts with scripture, controversy with charisma, and faith with fearlessness. His journey from Baltimore to Atlanta is one of the most dramatic stories in modern ministry, filled with triumph, scandal, and second chances. But when his name became connected to an alleged warlock and a six-figure payment, it opened old wounds and raised a chilling question. Has the modern church become so desperate for power and image that it's forgotten the power of prayer? As the rumors grew, so did the confusion. People wanted receipts, answers, explanations. How could one of the most influential pastors in America, a man who speaks to thousands each week, get caught in something this bizarre? And that's exactly what we're uncovering tonight. The money trail, the rumors of witchcraft, and the truth about what really went down inside New Birth Church. But before we jump into the controversy, we need to rewind back to the beginning of Jamal Bryant's journey. Because to understand how we got here, you have to see how it all began. And trust me, once you know what he's been through, you'll see why this story hit him harder than most people realize. Before the headlines, before the FBI whispers and the talk of a warlock, before the six-figure scandal, there was Jamal Bryant, a young, fiery preacher with a voice that could move a crowd and a message that made people believe change was possible. Born into a family deeply rooted in ministry, Jamal's path seemed chosen from birth. His father, Bishop John Richard Bryant, was a respected leader in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, and his mother, the late Reverend Cecilia Williams Bryant, was known as a spiritual powerhouse in her own right. Preaching ran in his blood. By the time most kids were learning to ride bikes, Jamal was learning how to lead prayer. But unlike many church kids, Jamal wasn't afraid to question things. He had the kind of charisma that could light up a room and the kind of confidence that could divide one. That combination would later make him one of the most talked about pastors in America, for better or for worse. His rise began in Baltimore. After earning degrees in political science and theology, Bryant founded the Empowerment Temple, a church that exploded with growth. Young people flocked to hear him. He preached with rhythm and relevance, weaving scripture with social justice, pop culture, and raw honesty. To his followers, he wasn't just a preacher. He was a movement. By the early 2000s, Jamal Bryant wasn't just known. He was recognized. Magazine covers, TV appearances, viral sermon clips. His voice became one of the most influential in the Black church. His phrase, "I'm not after members, I'm after disciples," became a slogan for a new generation of believers. He was bold, dynamic, and relatable. He was the preacher who talked about real life, politics, pain, and purpose. But then came the fall. In 2008, everything changed. Reports surfaced that Pastor Bryant had fathered a child outside of his marriage. For a man whose platform was built on integrity and leadership, it was devastating. The story spread fast, from gossip blogs to gospel networks. Overnight, he went from pastor of power to pastor in scandal. His marriage to Jamal Bryant, who would later become a reality TV star on The Real Housewives of Potomac, fell apart publicly. Critics attacked, supporters defended, and the media turned his personal pain into national entertainment. For many, that would have been the end. A scandal like that can bury a preacher's career forever. But Jamal Bryant was never one to stay buried. In what many called a comeback no one saw coming, he rebuilt slowly, strategically, and unapologetically. He returned to the pulpit, admitting his failures and vowing to be better. "I've fallen, but I'm not finished," he said, a phrase that resonated with thousands who'd failed, too. And it worked. His church in Baltimore grew again. His sermons started going viral again. By 2018, he was handpicked to take over New Birth Missionary Baptist Church in Lithonia, Georgia, a church once led by the late Bishop Eddie Long, another towering but controversial figure. For many, it felt like destiny. For others, irony. New Birth had been through its own storm. After Eddie Long's passing and years of controversy, the church's reputation was fragile. They needed a rebuilder, a man who knew what it meant to fall and rise again. Jamal Bryant was that man. He came in with bold energy, promising to restore New Birth's name, expand outreach, and bring young people back to the pews. For a while, it worked. Attendance rose. Community programs restarted. The church felt alive again. But as his influence grew, so did the whispers. Some said Bryant was too political, too flashy, too outspoken. Others said he was exactly what the modern church needed, a voice unafraid to mix God with real-world issues. And then came the pandemic, when everything changed. With churches closed and the world watching online, every sermon, every word, every choice was magnified. Jamal Bryant leaned into social activism, even suggesting unconventional ideas like growing weed to reach men, a comment that instantly went viral and sparked fierce debate. Critics called him reckless. Supporters called him revolutionary. But that was Jamal Bryant in one sentence, a man unafraid to walk the line between brilliance and backlash. So when news broke that something dark had allegedly happened under his watch, a bizarre claim involving money, manipulation, and a so-called warlock, the public was ready to believe anything. Because with Jamal Bryant, controversy has never been a stranger. Still, this story wasn't like the others. It wasn't about infidelity or fame. This was something deeper, stranger, and far more dangerous. It began reportedly with one man. A man who called himself spiritual, but not godly. A man who claimed to have the power to shift atmospheres, for a price. And according to online reports, that price was $170,000. But who was he? And how did he get so close to one of the most powerful pulpits in America? It sounded like something straight out of a movie, a warlock walking into one of the most famous churches in America. But for many New Birth members, it didn't feel like fiction. It felt like betrayal. To understand how something like this could even happen, we have to look at the inner workings of modern megachurch culture, the constant push for influence, expansion, and visibility. For years, churches like New Birth have been not just spiritual centers, but full-blown institutions with multi-million-dollar budgets, media teams, brand managers, and massive real estate holdings. That level of power attracts both saints and opportunists. And that's where the story takes a dark turn. Sometime in late 2024, whispers began circulating that someone had been brought in to help shift the spiritual energy around New Birth. Not a preacher, not a prophet, but someone who claimed to operate in the spiritual realm outside traditional Christian beliefs. According to reports that started surfacing on YouTube commentary channels and gospel news platforms, this man referred to himself as a spiritual advisor. But others used a much stronger word, warlock. In most church settings, that term alone would be enough to raise alarms. A warlock is, by definition, the male version of a witch, someone who works through supernatural power not rooted in God. But here's where things got complicated. Insiders claimed this man was brought in under the guise of consulting. Allegedly, he promised to help restore New Birth's energy, cleanse the atmosphere, and attract new favor. The fee? A jaw-dropping $170,000. When this rumor hit social media, people were stunned. How could a church known for preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ allegedly give money, any money, to someone claiming to use spiritual practices outside of that same gospel? Some immediately jumped to conclusions. The church has lost its way. They're mixing light with darkness. How can you serve two masters? Others said the story was being twisted, that it was never about witchcraft,